Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to talk about boosting IT efficiency around ITSM and how to potentially cut up 50% in 2025. I know this is a really hot topic of cost savings this year with everything that's uncertain. In today's session, how you're going to get the most out of this webinar is by participating in the polls. So yeah, we'll be doing live polls. So we're going to compare everyone's answers and get some industry information here. So please participate in the polls. We've got a Q&A at the end. So we have a lot of experience in this panel. And so any questions that you guys have, we'll get to those. And please stay to the end. We've got a $100 gift certificate to raffle off at the end of this. The webinar will be recorded and we'll be posting it on our website. So no worries about taking notes here. So, why should you stay to the end? Well, we're going to get into a lot of detail about signs your company is ready for an ITSM. I think a lot of companies, as they're maturing, aren't really thinking about this, but it's a key portion of your IT operation to bridge a lot of change that's going on in the company. And we'll get into what is ITSM and what's the advantage with Freshservice versus other ITSM solutions, and how 3GC wraps around that for a really big advantage. And we've got a real world experience here with the example here with GPA Global, and a very interesting case study that talks about and gets into the details of how we're able to save so much money. So don't forget to stay till the end. We've got that $100 gift certificate, and we've got Q&A. So before we get started, we'll do a quick round of introductions. Start with myself. I'm CEO, founder of 3GC Group. Wow, it's been 21 years since we got started. And along the way, we started another company called PandoBlocks that has a managed data warehouse that has a lot of cool AI features that are woven into it. We're now in this year working on bridging and joining the two companies. So a really exciting year for us. Joe, you want to go next?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Pincero. I am a career-long IT executive. I've managed high-performing teams in global companies such as Heineken, Sailed Air, American Tower. Most recently, I was the CIO for GPA Global. As you'll find out a little more about us, we are a luxury packaging company. So if you've ever seen a Johnny Walker blue package, GPA Global makes those kinds of great packages that you want to keep. So very excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Henry.
Thanks, Joe, for joining. We have some stories while you were at Heineken that we could talk about some other time, but thank you for joining. George?
Yes, I'm George Stone. I've been helping large organizations mature their IT operations for over 20 years. I've worked for Bank of America, Procter & Gamble, and W.R. Berkley Corporation.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. So a little bit about 3GC Group. We're an IT managed services provider. There are clients that remember us back when we're doing a lot of UCaaS and infrastructure. We've evolved a lot since then. We are integrating the very first and industry first data service desk. And what that's wrapped around is a managed data warehouse that really helps IT operations get involved in information systems and be at the center of it, joining a lot of different enterprise applications to get together and creating a central source of truth for the data. Now, that takes us into IT and integrating digital operations into our consultancy that's evolved over the last couple of years, and building out various different SaaS and cloud infrastructure for our clients. Our promise is to be very agile in our approach, make it very affordable with fractional resourcing and aligning to the business. A little bit about our history. So started 20 years ago as an MSP. The last 10 years has been getting it deep into advanced technologies like blockchain, AI, and interweaving all of that technology into DevOps and DevSecOps. We've been doing a lot of automations for companies as they scale from mid to large enterprise, and now we're bringing that to the small to mid enterprise in very simple ways, very cost-effective ways. It's all led by former CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, CISOs that you're very familiar with. And what's been great is in the last couple of years, we've been integrating into our board a lot of different COOs and CFOs, CEOs of various different businesses so that we could really get it right from a business standpoint. And our goal is in integrating both IT and information systems that most MSPs don't get right. Here's some of our logos. Some of these clients have been with us for a really, really long time. If any one of you guys are out there, thank you so much for your loyalty. So let's start it into getting into the details with what is IT service management. George, do you mind kicking this off?
Sure. ITSM is really the foundation to ITIL and other frameworks. It's a strategic structured approach. This practice builds efficiencies and integrates well into other spaces such as security, compliance, and financials. Like with monitoring. Now, with monitoring and security, I have two goals. If something goes bump in the middle of the night, I want to know about it. If there's an issue with production, I want to know about it before the users do. How do we do this? We integrate monitoring and security tools into Freshservice, automate the generation of tickets, and prioritize the incidents to cut out the noise. I've integrated ITAM, IT asset management, into the general ledger for some companies for depreciation purposes. In some cases, I built out hardware refreshes that roadmap out to 5 years, just as an example.
So we've got
Now,
some
go
poll
ahead.
questions. Please, there's going to be a little prompt that pops up. Please fill these out. George, you want to talk over this one?
The poll that's popping up now should be asking how things are done now in your environment. And there's a lot of different ways it could be done. With a low IT maturity, it could be, hey, I pick up the phone and call a guy or send an email. So there's lots of different ways this could be done. And based off of what I'm seeing for the polls, I mean, email. How many are in email hell right now with so much stuff coming into your inbox? How do you keep track of that stuff?
Wow, it's interesting. It's seeing other. No one's using Jira or Avanti. It's between email and other. Very interesting. Thanks, everyone. All right, so let's get into the gap that we're seeing in the market. We've been doing this for a really long time, 20 plus years, and one of the things that we realized is most MSPs are focused on keep the lights on IT, right? And most IT departments are focused on keep the lights on IT. There's this gap between just focusing on basic infrastructure, break fix, basic security, and help desk, and then maturing into more of an information systems, enterprise architecture, involved IT operations. Now, one of the key things is IT service management and ITIL, right? So you've got consultants who are focusing on that, and looking at integrating information systems into IT operations models and ITIL standards and policies, and that's where security operations really start getting formed. But there's this gap in between. And so the gap that we're filling is around ITIL, ITSM process-driven operations, and having a managed service model that helps companies do that and mature it. And there's a lot of change management maturity, right? That's required, and this is where we see a lot of companies as they're going through that maturity level, not being able to handle well because they don't have the resources to do it, right? The change management requires a lot of experience, a lot of project management, and even to some extent program management. Security risk modeling is one that's definitely a gap as companies are maturing. And then DevOps and DevSecOps. Most companies don't have the resources to start a DevOps and DevSecOps team, but as companies are scaling, those resources can be turned into templates and subscriptions, which is a big gap in the market. And then turning all of that into a continuous improvement model as you're moving all of your applications and your backend to the cloud. So how do you know you're ready for ITSM? This is, George, you've had so much experience in doing this and being able to work with executives to get the budget for it. Please guide us through this.
So a lot of organizations that we go into, they're just busy fighting fires. They don't have time to think ahead or be productive. Communications are lacking. A lot of situations there, you listen to the end user and, hey, I sent an email in. or I submitted a ticket and I've got no updates whatsoever. And not having any updates really frustrates users. Priorities are always based on who's yelling the loudest. We all know the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Overspending of hardware and software, PCs that are replaced way too soon and not repurposed, software licenses not being used. Without an organized approach, there's a greater likelihood of spending way more money than you need to. And when you actually don't have any data to back up what you need, I've had an IT director come to me and didn't know how to take the data and tell a narrative to their leadership, because their leadership was constantly asking, what's your team doing? And they didn't have the data to back it up. So I had to help them out with that. So those are just some examples. Now, again, here are some more examples. Onboarding a new hire. It takes several days for a person to become productive because they just don't have the access that they need. You've got somebody starting on Monday, and by Thursday, they can actually start doing some work because now that they've got all the access they need. Going into an organization, one thing I take a look at is data hygiene. I look at the accounts, and a lot of times what I see is somebody was offboarded years ago, but their account in on-prem AD or Azure is still enabled. We typically automate the generation of reports that identify things like this, from user information to hardware and software licensing. Expired warranties. Those are some things that can, bite you in the butt, especially with licensing. Or here's an example. I'm sure some of you have been there. Our website's down because our SSL cert expired. And now we got to jump through hoops and renew it. That's a major production issue. And so building out reports, building out a configuration management database for all your IT assets is definitely critical for growing organizations.
Great points. Great points. So now we're at poll question number 2. Please fill this out.
This one here is basically about what is your major pain point?
Is it help desk ticketing turnaround time? User onboarding and offboarding is a big one. We keep helping clients with that one. That's an interesting one. Change management. Oh yeah, there you go. Managing assets. I see a couple entries there for that. That's a good point, Jason. Thanks for bringing that up. We should yeah, if you can pick the one that you need the most help with, next time we'll open that up so that you could put multiple entries.
No, help desk ticket turnaround time, one of a couple of different KPIs that I'd be looking at. Here's a perfect example. I worked for an organization where I complained I needed more resources. We had too much work and it took us too long to do anything. So it could be a resource issue. And there are a lot of other things as well. Obviously, user onboarding we talked about. Change management in larger organizations, this is something that becomes much more critical, especially with organizations that need to follow some form of compliance. And managing assets, yeah, again, I touched upon that. It's about understanding what you have.
Yeah, it seems like change management is the most crucial point of help that our audience needs. Really interesting. It's split evenly between user onboarding, help desk, and managing assets.
Now, with change management in disparate teams, and what I mean by disparate teams is teams that don't necessarily work closely and communicate well with one another. Application developers are updating code Friday night. Well, Friday night, the network team is taking a router down, and they're going to pull the rug out from underneath. So in those situations there, it's referred to as a collision, where two changes are hitting at the same time, and you want to avoid those collisions. So, and there's a lot more to change management than just that.
Yeah, and the data is so crucial to be able to manage that. So let's get into why Freshservice is a better fit for small to mid enterprises over Servicenow. George, can you get into that? Because you've had experience doing both. I mean, you've implemented.
Yes, I have. Typically, I've implemented ServiceNow for organizations with well over 10,000 users. One case in point was a global insurance company with over 200 offices across the globe that make up 70 different sub companies. So it was very complex, and ServiceNow is definitely not cheap. Getting a return on investment, if you're not, tens of thousands of people, it's going to be hard and debatable. It's overly complicated, but I'll be honest, I love it. But only for extremely large organizations. It can do a lot, but you also need an organization with an IT budget that is huge. Using ServiceNow out of the box is almost impossible. You need to develop in that platform. And that's supporting it costs a lot of money. I've been there. Fresh service is definitely faster to production. In some cases, I could probably prove a return of investment in the first couple of months. It doesn't require a team of developers that specialize on individual modules in ServiceNow. Those of you with ServiceNow experience probably understand that, one developer can only do these two things in ServiceNow, and you need another developer that can do these other two things. That's not the case for us when we implement Fresh Service. It is so much easier. And I do like ServiceNow, and I do like Fresh Service for the simple reason I can do a lot of the stuff that I used to do in ServiceNow in Fresh Service. And that's always been appealing to me.
So let's get into why 3GC. And when it comes to because we have clients that we support that are both on ServiceNow and Fresh Service. What's the differentiator, George? In our offering as a service provider, why should companies go with us?
Well, we definitely provide a faster implementation time with a greater return of investment compared to ServiceNow. I like to think that when we do an implementation, we provide white glove handholding service. Now, consulting, mentoring. I've worked with a lot of different organizations, and they came up through the ranks, and they just don't have the senior management experience to understand what the big picture is. And we're always looking for ways to automate. We like to basically use the tool to interact with the business, not just focus on the tool itself. Every business is different, and utilizing Fresh Service to align with the business to me is critical. With an implementation, we can far exceed than just IT operations. We could expand Fresh Service into facilities, into finance, into marketing. There's different ways to integrate into the business organization if needed. And now during our implementations, we typically look around and see things such as no asset lifecycle, no account lifecycle. Basic processes and procedures are not being followed. Obviously, poor data hygiene, technical debt. We go in and start doing asset management. One of the things I'm going to look at is end of life of your OSs, of your hardware, and start building out that risk registry for your organization. And obviously, security risks. And these are all things that we can help with. Now, this is just a KPI dashboard. This particular page here is based off volume. It's one major KPI in IT service management. And understanding the volume of the amount of work being done, the amount of work coming in every week, every month, and everything like that really helps you. Now, I've used it to justify additional headcount or justify the headcount I have. Everybody's cutting budget and everything like that and reducing staff. And sometimes you need to justify the staff you have and what they're doing. At one point in time, I was told, in God we trust, everything else show me the data. And years later, I still say that to my teams. The data is critical, and having something that can, like what you see on the screen and on the next couple of screens, being able to tell a narrative will always help you. This is IT asset management. It could be hardware. It could be a software dashboard. And again, this is part of your risk registry. And this can be completely automated to update every week, every month. You could have it send out to your leadership or to your team. It's reports like this that help you look at the data and possibly save some money. Now, this right here is actually a workflow. This is something that we build out within Fresh Service. We've got a lot of experience doing this. We've built out some workflows for Joe's team that are pages long and very complex. Some workflows are simple, like routing between teams. Like a ticket gets entered, it goes to the service desk. From there, it goes to the network team, or maybe go to the DBA team. Others can be very complex, such as automating onboarding a user to a specific department and making sure they get the access that they needed. So if I could automate everything from front to end, the creation of the account takes minutes, and they've got all the access that they need. All you need to do is communicate the new password. So we also like to automate alert management and your monitoring, your security tools. And we've got API integrations, we've got webhooks. I've got a developer that is really good at just creating things from the ground up to make it work. Alerts, you've got a DHCP scope that's full. And for those of you technical enough, you know that if somebody else comes onto the network, they're not going to get an IP address. They're going to be dead in the water. So what kind of alert should that be generating? What priority level? Or you have a server down, especially a major production server, that should be a P1 priority. And so when the ticket gets generated, you know it's a P1 priority. Depending on your integrations, it could be calling your phone to let you know that you've got an outage. Again, we try to automate all that stuff, and it goes back to if something goes bump or if something goes down, I want to know about it before everybody else does.
A lot of great details there. So we're gonna now get into poll question number 3. We went over a couple of features. What are some features that you're most excited about? Ability to automate, recurring tasks, tracking assets and subscriptions, process and change management, more visibility, the dashboards and KPI trackers. Which of these would you be the most excited about? I see the polls coming in. Wow, look at that.
Show me the data.
Show me the data. I love that. Yeah, it's really impressive, George. I forget how involved you were in these. The amount of detail you went over was awesome. All right, so what's leading now? Got visibility. Yeah, dashboards. Oh, I'm surprised to see just only one around onboarding steps, change management. Ability to automate. Wow. Okay, cool. And this is where, our DevOps and DevSecOps teams fit really well. All right. So GPA Global, thank you, Joe, for being here with us and giving us the opportunity to work with GPA Global. It was a phenomenal company. 33 offices, 10 countries, 4 different continents, providing packaging for some of the largest brands out there. Really impressive what that company's grown into. But there's been some challenges that we had to deal with.
Yeah, that's an understatement, Henry. So I feel like we're the poster child for this use case, right? So so hopefully some people it can resonate with the crowd here. But we are a PE-backed packaging company growing very quickly through M&A. So picture acquisitions of privately owned companies, that manufacturing plants, right? That have 1 or 2 IT personnel. And so these are the things that we are acquiring very quickly through a 5 or 6 year period. And so now you've got these disparate systems, disparate processes. You've got folks that are, walk up help desk, right? So they know how to deal with the folks in their plant. And so we had a lot of challenges. Obviously, I'm the first CIO there, so coming in and try to globalize everything, it was a big challenge. So what are the big challenges that we had right away? First of all, we didn't know what assets we had. I mean, think about it. We acquired 12 different companies and dozens of entities, right? Where are all our assets? Who's got laptops? Who's got hardware? These are being tracked on spreadsheets, and there's no global system. So we were flying kind of blind at that point. Also, secondly, as this company is growing, how do we support the organization in a global manner? We're starting to roll out global enterprise applications like ERP and CRM. We want to do things the same way and gain synergies. How do I do that with a small team? And that continues to grow. So as we're building this team, we're still acquiring more companies. And so how do I do that? We had no data available. This is all the themes we've been talking about. No data to look at what were the recurring issues. What are things that we can try to automate? I saw that was very important to folks. What are things that we can fix the root cause for? And last but not least, but as a PE-based company, costs were critical, right? So we really had to be cost conscious. And, the IT budgets were limited. I mean, EBITDA is huge for a PE company. We try to cut our costs as much as possible and still be effective.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to align these challenges to the solution. And we're talking about driving this initiative. It was really imperative for us to align with Joe at the CIO level, and because he was in the middle of doing a lot of really big projects, and Joe couldn't spend a lot of time with us on this. He just he was just dealing with a lot of big initiatives, and so it was imperative for us to really align to the challenges.
Yeah, and I'll kind of like the journey that we went on here. So, my team and I were thinking, how do we solve this challenge? this issue. And I, having worked for large companies like Sailed Air and American Tower, we used ServiceNow. So naturally, I looked at that first. Quickly realized that number one, it's overkill for what we need, right? So we're trying to crawl and walk before we run. And then secondly, it was very expensive. So all the things that George said earlier, it's true. So we were not a $10 billion company with an unlimited budget. So after talking to Henry in 3GC, he introduced Freshservice to us. And so my staff and I looked at this and said, wow, this could do everything we're looking for, especially where we are as a mid to large size company. Essentially, I want to say a fraction of the price. It was much more affordable. So it was a no-brainer for me. We immediately engaged 3GC and Freshservice, and George was our key leader on that on the 3GC side. George, if you want to talk about some of the details of that implementation, it actually had changed things, how we did things at GPA Global.
Mentoring and consulting is the best part of what I do. Working with GPA, and again, global footprint with IT organizations across the globe, dealing with their organization in Poland, to the US, to Mexico, as well as China. You're dealing with different levels of IT maturity. You're dealing with different cultures. And this was definitely a fun project. And trying to basically, these organizations, for lack of a better term, are used to working in a bubble. Well, now they're part of a global organization. And so I worked with Joe's team and these different units and trying to, the organizational change management side of this, trying to explain the shift in process and procedure and why and the benefits of that. And I think with each of those locations, we were quick to get them onboarded and acclimated to the new processes and procedures, and then start seeing the data, the benefit of doing this and the value. IT asset management was huge. We helped align the organization with Freshservice, obviously creating the foundation for this for identity access management. Joe, you want to talk more about the results?
Yeah, I'd love to. If you want to switch to the next slide. So, the results are real, right? They're measurable, and they're quick. To George's point, we can get results pretty quickly. Change management is always a challenge in any organization. When you have 12 different, organizations and 33 offices, it was. And George, you mentioned fun, man. I don't know what your idea of fun is, but that was a pretty big challenge.
I love teaching.
But it's still a journey that they're going on. But the results were very clear. We were able to get visibility on over 95% of our assets, and that continues to grow. We reduced recurring issues by over 25%. So we're able to go after the root causes to understand. And look, this helps not only the company to your stakeholders to be happy, but your employees. Who wants to solve the same issue over and over again? Seriously, that's like annoying. But a real big one was cost avoidance, right? So as we grew as a company, instead of having to hire additional support people to work in these regions or in these bubbles, now we have a global support organization, and the cost avoidance of 500K or more. So I didn't have to hire these additional people. There's a lot of other things here, including security. That maybe Henry, you want to touch on a few more of these, because
Yeah.
we're just like astonished at what we accomplished in a short time.
Yeah, and thanks for teeing that up, because that's one of the biggest differentiators for us, 3GC, right? Is our DevSecOps capabilities and our red teaming. We've got a really mature approach to security that helps companies, scale into a deeper look into security practice beyond NIST and CIS 19 and that kind of stuff, right? Companies really need more of a hacker's view. I'd say one of the really cool things we did at GPA Global is not only implement ITSM, but create workflows that integrate security operations into it, and be able to really get a centralized view of things. The ITSM is a center point for a lot of different things, and I love what George mentioned before, which is in data we trust. And from looking at the data, we were able to identify the root causes of things. The ticket tagging as basic as it sounds, when you're looking at so many different tickets and so many different issues, the tagging of that data of those tickets means so much. You can garner so much more out of that data. And so
I think the one other thing, Henry, is as we rolled out these global applications, MS Dynamics, F&O, ERP, 21 legal entities, 3 continents. We needed a way to really centralize that support and get follow the sun support. And this Freshservice really went a long way to helping us do that.
Oh, really cool. There's so many different things that occurred here that we're so proud of. George, was there anything that you want to throw in there?
We talked about security and security tools. I was just thinking about it. I can't remember if it was CrowdStrike or a Palo Alto tool. But so Freshservice for IT asset management, not only are you pulling in all the hardware data, you're also pulling in all the software data. And when deploying other software tools, such as security tools, having a single source of truth of, okay, in CrowdStrike, we've deployed it out to 700 devices, but I'm looking at Freshservice. I see it deployed to 700 devices, but I see that you're missing 50 devices in Paris. And so again, having the data available to you to, any process or procedure I put in place, I always try to think of a way to audit it, to make sure that we're following it. And so again, deploying software is just one example. And having a source of truth that I can go to always and continuously that is updated is definitely beneficial.
So we're gonna get into Q&A now, and thanks, Cedric, for prompting that. Yeah, if anyone has questions, we'd love to.
We have a couple of questions in the Q&A. You hit your Q&A button. And there's one also that Jay had asked earlier. Yeah.
Okay, so integrating other security tools like Sentinel-1 or Ninja-1 or SIEM, absolutely yes. Email communications, webhooks, API integrations. I've got API integration into Logic Monitor, one monitoring tool that we utilize for some of our clients. And so, yeah, if something happens, depending on the type of alert will determine the priority of the incident, and it'll automatically get created. Now, there is an IT operations module to Freshservice that comes with Freshservice. You don't have to pay extra like you do with ServiceNow. You've got an alert dashboard, all your alerts feeding in from all your different tools. It's a lot of information. And, I could do this with SolarWinds. I do it with Logic Monitor. There are so many other tools out there that I could do it with as well. But that's a lot to watch.
Kira, what was the user experience like? As we said, change management is not easy anywhere. And when you've got 3 different continents you're trying to do this with, I can tell you, though, Freshservice is pretty simple to use. There's very much an email-based system. So once we got people to understand that, hey, and I think that the adoption was a little just more harder on the user side, right? Because I can't just walk over to Zach and get what I need. Well, in the beginning they're going to do that, right? But Zach is going to put in a ticket for them, right? So that we can track the data, and then eventually Zach's going to say, "Let me show you how to do this," so that if I'm not here, your answer can be quicker, because we have 1 or 2 IT people in these organizations. If they went on vacation, somebody else had to support them. So I think it's the adoption there. It all depends on how many different cultures you're trying to adopt at once, but also fast implementation for us, it took months, because we were so complex, and it was really just and it wasn't anything Freshservice or 3GC. It was really just our internal folks, right? 33 offices, 3 continents, just getting people to work on it. So it took us several months, but the results were pretty astounding. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, George.
ITIL foundations. An ITSM tool should be easy to use and easy to get to. Now, for GPA, we definitely did that for them. We built out a customized portal web interface. We can also hook it into Slack. We can hook it into Teams. But again, GPA was a global footprint. And so all the email communications and everything like that, different languages. We did it in Polish. We did it in Spanish. We did it in Mandarin Chinese, and we did it in French. And so all the different email notifications based off of what was automated, they would see it in their own native language. They'd log into the portal. It would be in their own native language. Again, easy to get to and easy to use. That's always been the goal.
There's a question about fast implementation. So this is an interesting one because when it comes to implementations with Servicenow, it there's a whole long set of assessments that need to get done, and deploying it out is a very big project. But for Fresh Service, George, can you talk over some of the templates that we have, from 3GC side that gets this down to a very easy implementation? Let's say a client, wanted to get something basic going. What's the turnaround time like? How fast can we get something started?
Depending on how easy we can get access to the environment and get the data. So in Fresh Service, depending on the version, it's considered requester or contacts, and those are your users. Typically, what I do is I would go to on-prem AD or Azure. I'd do an export out to CSV of all the user information, and my team would start massaging the data into something that can be automatically uploaded into Fresh Service, and then boom, you've got your users in there. Whether it's a couple hundred people or a couple thousand people. Assets, you might have a spreadsheet. I could take that and again massage the data into something that could be uploaded. Those are relatively quick processes. And now, once your users are there and the assets, making sure that they're linked properly. Now, what if you don't have any data on your assets? Well, I can install a Polar that would scan your networks. And typically, I'd scan every single subnet and start bringing in data on your printers, on your network, on your servers, on your end user devices. Anything that's on the network, I'd pull that in and start classifying it, quantifying it. And again, your users, we would work out again, now this is an organizational change management. Work on a communication that would go out to the users explaining, hey, here's a new process. This is what you do now. And work with the organization to, wordsmith that and communicate that out to the user community and start utilizing. Now, if they're already using emails to communicate with you, we can redirect the emails into Fresh Service. And so it automatically generates a ticket for that specific user in their name. They automatically get a response letting them know, hey, we got this. We're going to work on this.
Hey, George, just like another thing that I just remembered in terms of what really helped us on the security side, right, is as we understood what assets we had out there, we were able to get a handle on how many XP and Windows 7 computers were still in use. So we were able to devise a plan to mitigate those risks. I mean, these that's a huge security issue that we would have been blind to be quite honest, if we didn't have that data. So again, data rules, right?
And it could be my data gathering on the assets will let you know what domains they're logging into, or if they're workgroup only devices that are out there. It'll also help you understand what rogue devices you have out there, because we all know that happens.
I've seen our team deploy Freshworks out in a week. It's so different than deploying ServiceNow. But I think the way the modules are set up and the templates that we have make it just so easy to deploy. I think we have room for one more question.
I think Akira had another question here about if you've seen the Q&A section.
Yeah. So do I need to hire a dedicated resource to manage and tune it? So that's a good one.
No.
So I can answer just real
I'll say it
quickly.
right now. No.
We did not. We did not have to hire anybody to fine tune it. So and that was critical for us. That's how we got that cost avoidance, right? We don't need a huge staff to manage this thing. It really is easy to use. And once our folks understood what to do, like I said, George is a great teacher. For us personally, we didn't have to hire anybody new.
So yeah, we could tie that all into the actual implementation or as a managed service. And it is a huge night and night and day difference between Freshworks and ServiceNow. Revenue wise, I would love all of our clients to go to ServiceNow, but let's face it, not everyone could afford it. And so Freshworks is a great solution. So it's about right sizing it. Really appreciate everyone's questions and get involved. Appreciate everyone joining us. If you have any questions, we'd love to meet with you, provide some free consultation, whether it be on the ITSM side, cybersecurity side, either one. We'd love to meet with you.